Good evening, everyone. It's Necro Thursday. We're back with Jeff this time. How's it going, Jeff?
Good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well. The season is rolling on, and I think I've said it before, but I love the autumn, but it always seems so brief and fleeting, you know?
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, I mean, someone who grew up in New England, I distinctly remember you have October and some of November, and then it's a winter shitstorm till March or April, and then you get another month and a half where it's nice, and then it's brutally humid and hot.
Yeah. No, it's just this couple of months of just peaceful weather, like beautiful colors and things like that, and then it's just like gray desolation for the next few months after this.
Yeah, it's gonna take some getting used to for me. This will be my first winter in quite a while. I was out in LA for forever, and now in Texas, while it's still warm, it's definitely cooling off. It rains more than I'm used to, and for now, I'm still enjoying it. It's still kind of new to me, like this kind of weather, but we'll see.
Right on. And before we get going, I just wanted to mention that once you're done listening to this podcast, you need to check out our brothers out there. Of course, we are talking about Horror Wolf 666, hosted by Brandon Legion. We have Into the Necrosphere, the best extreme music podcast the only one I listen to, hosted by Jackie Smith. Wednesday, we have Everything Went Black, which is my flagship podcast that I started years and years ago before most people even knew what a podcast was.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Thursday is Necro Thursday. On Friday, we have Break the Apocalypse featuring Mike's brother, John Draper. And it's sort of a whimsical, comedic look at current events and other things culturally related. Sunday, the Lord's Day, we have Carl Hikara coming at you with blasphemy, esoteric warfare, and the occult. And I'm actually going to be on an episode in a couple of weeks. I've been on a show before, but we talk about weird fiction, and we're covering a Thomas Ligotti story coming up. And I'm not going to tell you guys what it is. It's a surprise. So
tell me off air.
I'll tell you off air what it is.
Yeah.
And that's our brothers out there. Make sure you subscribe to their shows after you listen to this one. And yeah, man, it's been really cool. Like getting to know everyone, and some people we've met in person. Like I met Brandon on tour earlier this year, and it was really cool. Hopefully, more to come. So,
absolutely, man.
Have you checked out anything cool last couple of weeks, Jeff?
Not much, actually. I've been pretty busy, but I wanted to say I am still watching Interview with a Vampire. I only got one episode left.
Okay.
So I stuck with it, and happy to say I really like it. Like I know I mentioned before, I'm not the biggest fan of traditional vampires, and I'm not really familiar with Anne Rice's work, but it's a really good show. It's kind of cool they took that story and expanded it. It looks like they're probably going to take it into another season. You know me, I don't think any TV show should run longer than 3-4 seasons tops. You know what I mean? But we'll see. We also started watching The Watcher on Netflix.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right.
Really not far into it at all. Didn't realize it's based on a true story, so I'm very curious to see where it goes. I don't really know anything about it other than everyone seems to be watching it or asking me if I've watched it. So finally gonna dig in and watch some of that.
I know the story actually because it takes place in Westfield, I think, which is maybe 2 or 3 exits away from where I live right now. And yeah, it's like a nice area. It's a nice town, and the next town over is Garwood, which is where my Muay Thai gym is. So I'm up in that area quite a bit. And I found out about this urban legend, or it's not even really an urban legend. It's actually a documented story of
right.
This kind of thing. So yeah, I want to check it out. I definitely do. I just haven't gotten around to it.
Yeah. So they're kind of one of those things where we're finally getting around to it. And I also wanted to ask you. I finished up that series on Shudder, the 101 scariest movie scenes or moments or whatever.
Yeah,
Did you finish?
I did.
Yeah. What do you think of the final 10? Were you mostly in agreement, or?
No, not really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh,
There's a few things in there I thought like, that's it. Like, Train to Busan, huh? Really? Okay. Not a movie I hated by any means. Thought it was really good, but top 10, yeah, I wouldn't put it in my top 10. That's for sure.
I think that there was a lot of nods to Annihilation, which I thought was not scary at all, like the whole movie. And
Love that movie.
yeah, I mean, Rennie loaned me the trilogy of books in one volume, and I haven't started reading it yet. I'll get to why I haven't started reading it yet because there's something in my list I want to talk about real quick. And the movie was cool, but it just wasn't scary though. It was like a conceptually cool idea, but I didn't really think there was anything particularly scary. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't really think it was conceived as a horror movie though. I don't know if that was its intention. I think it was more of a kind of like a sci-fi-ish, little with darker subject matter.
They also had a lot of love for that movie, which I didn't see. I think Fede Alvarez did it. It's the guy abducts the woman and injects her with his jizz or something like that. You know what I'm
Oh
talking
yeah,
about?
Don't Breathe. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I just am not interested in seeing that film, but they gave a lot of props to that one, and I just find that to be kind of barely a horror movie, really.
I didn't like it, considering I saw it under a wave of a lot of hype. I expected a lot more. Went back and revisited maybe a year or so ago,
Yeah.
and still found like it just didn't. I don't know. There's a lot wrong with it. I didn't quite get the love for it myself.
I mean, that's a disgusting scene, but like I haven't seen the
Yeah,
movie, so I don't know what the context is. But I don't find that particularly scary. You know what I mean?
yeah, gross for sure.
Yeah,
Scary.
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, well, that depends. Yeah, I don't personally don't think it's that scary, but I'm sure some people would find that pretty horrific, I guess. Um, but yeah, they definitely gave some love to some movies that I just kind of shrugged at, like Final Destination 2 and stuff like that. Just never really enjoyed those types of the horror movies that are just clever ways of killing people. It's just a freak show. Like it's got to be more than that for me to think it's good anyway.
They did give a nod to Terrified, the Argentine film that came out a few years ago.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, yeah. Did you like that?
I did. I actually liked that quite a bit.
I gotta watch it again. I remember being kind of lukewarm on it, but it did have that. I think it was the scene they showed on the show of the dead kids sitting at the breakfast table. That was really really unsettling.
I thought in general the film had a lot of good stuff. There was definitely some narrative shortcomings, but in general, I thought that ranked pretty high in things that I've seen that year.
Yeah, that's just a couple years ago, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I do love list shows, and obviously their list isn't the definitive say all. I mean, it's obviously taste is subjective, and I'm sure they'll probably do another one next year, or I hope they do.
Absolutely. Well, if
Um,
they do one next year with this year's films, they're going to have quite a bit to choose from, really.
yeah, yeah, it's been a mostly pretty good year for horror. Even it's kind of funny. The three of us did Halloween Ends, and was talking to a doctor yesterday, and for checkup, and it came up that I do a horror movie podcast, and he brought up Halloween Ends,
And he liked it.
and he really liked it, and he had a lot of like interesting points to say about it. And I just recently watched the Red Letter Media breakdown of the movie on YouTube, and that movie might have been more clever than I gave it credit for. Like I still don't think it's good or completely successful, but I like we mentioned, I think time is going to be very kind to that one.
You're probably right. I mean, I think I covered. I mean, I didn't hate it, but like I thought there was promising things in there, and it's probably in line with maybe some of the stuff that they talked about. But yeah, in general, out of anything that's been made under that banner, I think this is one of the best things that has happened to that franchise in a long time.
Yeah, because if you really think about it, outside of the first two and three, obviously, the rest of them are pretty bad. And I thought Rob Zombie's take on it was mostly bad. All respect for swinging for the fences with a different idea, but I'm curious what it's going to look like when I see it in 10 years when it's on like AMC, on Halloween or something. You know what I mean? Like
Totally.
I might like it more, but yeah. What have you been checking out, Mike?
Well, I saw Pearl the other night.
Oh yeah, nice.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, I'm assuming we're going to talk about it on an episode, but I thought it was the Gone with the Wind of horror films. So that is an indication of some of my feelings about it. And I mean, I think that Ty West is really, getting into something with this trilogy he's doing, honestly.
Yeah, he's such a talented filmmaker, and when he hits, man. Like when he's on it, like there's almost no one better.
And what I like about it, it's a different vibe, like a totally different voice than X. You know what I mean?
Totally. Yes. Yeah. That took me by surprise. I was like, right at the beginning, I was like, oh, he's totally going for something completely different.
Yeah, and I really, really appreciate that. It's like very creative and like very, very it's not going for the obvious stuff, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah. Yes, I'm excited to rewatch that, and we definitely got to cover that one.
Yeah, I also saw Satan's Slaves Communion. It's the the second installment of the sequel to Satan's Slaves, which is the Jocko Anwar. I think it's from either Thailand or Cambodia, maybe somewhere in Southeast Asia.
Okay.
Excellent. I want to talk about it on the show, so I don't not get too deeply into it. But
sure.
Anyone who's seen the first Satan's Slaves, the title is misleading, I think, because it's not necessarily you would Satan's Slaves makes you think of like a '60s biker movie with like
or like
Peter Fonda, like Peter Fonda or something, but it's not. It really isn't that. It's a pretty cool like occult horror film, and there's a lot of cool like conceptual stuff that goes on in both of these. So
excellent.
Yeah, and then just last night, at the recommendation of our quality control manager Rennie, I checked out a film on Shudder called Mandrake, which is actually really good.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I keep seeing that ad. I'm on Shudder all the time, so I keep seeing that one pop up. And I was kind of curious if anyone's seen it, if it was worth the time to check out.
Oh yeah,
and you're saying it is.
It is, and I'd actually like to talk about it too. It's like very atmospheric, kind of brooding. It takes place in Northern Ireland, and it ties into a lot of the folklore. I don't know if it's real or not, but they. None of the names and stuff rang a bell with me, so I don't know. But it's like there's definitely like a mythology associated with it, and yeah, very cool. And
I'll watch it tonight, and I'll text you.
Yeah,
it'll be a good diversion from what I'm normally falling asleep to watching, which is YouTube.
Oh yeah, like
yeah,
just like people hitting themselves in the face with water pistols and things like that.
I somehow stumbled across like this YouTube channel that is just very angry anti-woke guy who's constantly going in on Star Wars and this new Lord of the Rings show and Game of Thrones, and just this whole angle as how everything's been ruined by diversity and wokeness. And I'm just like, man, I don't understand why anyone would devote this much time and energy to something that they don't like.
I hear you, man.
Move on, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's funny, man. I somehow avoid all that stuff on my YouTube watching. Like the stuff that gets up in my feed is generally not stuff that annoys me, which I think is kind of cool.
Yeah, usually it's like comedy or reviews of movies, things like that. But yeah, somehow I saw this. Maybe that's how, because they were reviewing a Marvel movie.
Yeah, actually, that's probably what it was. It's like a movie review or something. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, I'm not the biggest Marvel fan. I didn't read the comics growing up or anything, and I just find that at least 50% of those movies are complete trash.
Yeah,
But
I've
that
been
whole
checking out.
angle of
I'm sorry, go ahead, man.
no, 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 no. Go ahead, go ahead.
I've been checking out a lot of these like BookTube channels. Like I listen to watch Michael K. Vaughan and Criminale, and they
Hmm.
both cover like weird fiction and crime and comics and stuff like that. It's really cool.
Oh yeah, that's the good stuff.
Yeah.
I somehow end up watching just dumb idiots ranting about fucking Spider-Man. you know.
I just want to mention a book that I just started, and I'm already like halfway done with it. It's the new Adam Neville book called The Vessel, and it's short. It's like 165 pages long. So I've been ranting about how great Adam Neville is over the last several years, and he wrote The Ritual, which is David Bruckner directed that several
You
years
did?
ago. Yeah, and it was on Netflix originals,
Yes. Yeah,
and
yeah.
his book was amazing. The movie was cool, but didn't even scratch the surface of what he was doing in the book. And I've been a fan ever since then. And he is really interesting writer in the vein of like I would say he kind of straddles folk horror and like weird fiction. And none of his stuff is like straight up like slasher or vampires or werewolves or any of that kind of stuff. It's very much
Right.
this like unique voice, which is influenced by stuff like Lovecraft and like Arthur Machen and just stuff like that. Its book is great so far.
Oh, awesome. I just ordered a book recently called Sellout. It's about all the 90s punk bands that got signed to major labels.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I think someone in Caven put it up on Instagram because they were interviewed because they also went through the major label ringer, and that's it's an era of music I find fascinating. When Green Day got signed and sold millions of records, everyone started getting snatched up around that time. I'm sure you remember.
Oh yeah, definitely. That was definitely an interesting time in music.
Yeah, totally. And some great bands put out some of their best records on major labels, and no one cared. It didn't catch on like Green Day did, and it's pretty obvious why. These bands are a lot more complicated than a band like Green Day. Like Shudder to Think being on a major label makes no sense, but yet they released one of the best records ever made, in my opinion.
Yeah, they're a great band. I used to really dig them. I've seen them a few times over the years, back mostly in the
Yeah, yeah,
'90s and like actually all the times I saw them were in the '90s. So yeah.
yeah. I would say yeah, because I think by the 2000s they were broken up.
Another band that comes to mind from that era was Girls Against Boys.
Yeah, great band.
Yeah, which is like I like them more now than I think I did back then. And it was like a guy from Soulside. They released a few records on Touch and Go, and then got signed to a major. And they kind of were like in this like when I listen to them, I think of like bands like The Fall and Wire mixed with noise rock maybe.
Sure, big Joy Division influence too
Yeah,
in the early days of Girls Against Boys.
definitely Joy Division, that kind of thing. And
Yeah,
yeah, but, that was I always actually. It's funny we're talking about the '90s because the thing we're talking about tonight it's allegedly takes place in '99. So yeah,
yeah, oh, yeah. See how we were tying that in there?
it's all this whole one big thing, man. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So yeah, without any further delay, the subject of this evening's podcast is VHS 99, the latest in the VHS franchise.
Seem to be cranking these out, man.
It shows.
It does.
Yeah. So just a couple of
It does.
technical items here. Released in September 16th, 2022 at Toronto Film Festival. And then October 20th, 2022 as a Shudder exclusive to the world. It's 109 minutes. And a variety of different directors and screenplay writers and producers are involved in this whole thing. And That's where I kind of lost interest in some of this stuff here. I guess we'll mention who wrote and directed as we move through each one of these episodes here, segments here.
So before we get into the segments themselves, we did the last one on this podcast. It seems like I don't know, a couple months ago.
It was this year. Yeah.
Yeah, it feels really recent. So when this showed up, I was like, oh, another one? Okay. But the series in general, like, were you a fan of these? The original? I think the original two are pretty good.
Yeah, the first two I really liked. You know what I mean? And I've never really been a fan of found footage, you know. And
right.
But the first two had a lot of really cool stuff in there, man. You know what I mean? There's a lot of interest.
Sure.
A lot of some of the like Ty West, like guys like him, I think made some entries into that.
He did one of the better ones.
Yeah, one of the better ones. And there's a lot of guys, a lot of people now who are a lot of filmmakers that are definitely more in the mainstream that sort of got their start as doing the VHS type entries.
Yeah, totally. The series seemed to take a weird turn in the third one, which I thought was mostly bad, but had a great segment by Nacho Vigalondo, the Spanish filmmaker who made the great, criminally underrated Time Crimes. I don't know if you've seen that, but man, you definitely got to check that one out.
Yeah, no, I've seen that.
Yeah, and then with these last two, they seem to go even further in a different direction, kind of more leaning into the comedic aspects of the first two. Which mixed bag there, but yeah.
Well, one of my favorite, I think my favorite of everything that's ever come out under this moniker was the Safe Haven entry by Timo Tjahjanto. Do you know that one?
Yes.
That's like that's kind of Jim Jones-esque,
I mean, leaps and bounds that is above everything else in the series. That could be its own movie.
I would love to see a feature film following that storyline, actually.
Absolutely. So you just added another, because I think that's one of the longer entries of the whole thing. I think, that one's at least a half hour long. I feel like you could make that a feature length film easily, keep it at like an hour and 20 minutes or something like that. That one stood out to me the most. Still, I think each one in the first three had one that was like, wow, that was great. And the last one had a couple okay ones, couple duds, and this one we'll talk about.
Yeah, there was the entry, the Wingard entry with the eye, that weird eye.
Yeah, that was yes.
Adam Wingard.
That one was, that was fun.
Or he actually acts in it.
Yes.
Yeah. I kind of like that.
He's an LA guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that one too. That one has the zombie GoPro segment in it, which not amazing, but clever, fun. Two stands out to me as the best in this series, the most consistently good. I don't think there was one in there that was like a complete dud or anything like that.
Yeah, so this brings us to the 99 entry. Now, let me ask you a question. Have you heard of any of these people that have made these films? Like, do you know? Does any of these names ring a bell with you?
Yes, one does actually. Flying Lotus.
Well, yeah, but I don't. I know that name not from film though.
Same. Yeah, actually, the company I used to work for in Los Angeles, we worked with him or them, or I honestly don't know a goddamn thing about Flying Lotus's music. I guess I'm showing my age. But another one of our artists, Thundercat, did some stuff with Flying Lotus, and I think that's how Flying Lotus got on my radar. Because I'd see their T-shirts or hoodies around. Because I'd be transporting them from place to place. But other than that, none of the names really stood out to me as recognizable names, which is fine. Got to start somewhere, and like you said, a lot of these filmmakers get their starts doing things like this.
I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't completely out of touch with anything. You know what I mean? Because I didn't recognize anybody.
The people who did the last segment, I guess we'll talk about it more when we talk about that one. They made a movie that's in Shudder right now. I think it's called Dead Cam or
Oh yeah,
it's just
yeah, yep. Okay.
something like that. You know what I'm talking? I'm
Yeah,
really bad
yeah.
with
Yep.
remembering things I've watched. Apparently,
Right on.
yeah.
All right.
So
So
I saw that after this. So
yeah, there's just like all the other entries into this franchise, there's a wraparound story. In this case, it's called Gawkers. And I got to be honest with you, the way that one kind of weaved in and out and then became something, I thought was interesting. So we'll get to that. I thought that was kind of
okay,
compelling how they did it. You know, because
okay,
originally, at first, you're like,
interesting.
there's all these like little green army men, and like, what does this have to do with anything? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I didn't even catch that was part of Gawkers.
Oh
I
yeah,
really
okay.
didn't.
Well,
Yeah.
we'll get to it then. Yeah,
All right. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, good. Because I was literally was going to start off with, what the fuck is this? Like, yeah, I didn't get why it was in there. And I know the other ones kind of had this like VHS lore of these like current these tapes, or what they are. They seem to have completely abandoned that with this one.
Yeah, that's gone, and it almost. I got to be honest, man. It feels like this new crop of VHS collections is like going in a completely different direction, and almost has nothing to do with the original few that came out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Totally going for a different vibe. Obviously, going off of '90s nostalgia, which had to come eventually. The '80s have been completely mined as far as that goes. So it's time to move on to '90s.
So that brings us to the first entry, which is the short Shredding,
Yes.
written and directed by Maggie Levin. Okay, and it has to do with it took me about maybe 90 seconds to completely check out on this one.
Oh, you lasted longer than I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one, man, I mean, to start the film off with this was an odd choice. And then by the time it was done, I thought including it in this anthology was an odd choice. It's really bad.
And it was also, I mean, we're both old men. The '90s was kind of our heyday in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? And like, like it's been all downhill for me ever since the new millennium started up. Anyway, so but the '90s,
pretty
were
much.
yeah. I mean, the '90s we were young, good-looking guys back then, doing cool stuff, and now we're just, counting the days till the end right now.
Now we're doing a horror podcast.
Now we're doing a horror podcast.
Yeah.
But having, both of us have a lot of experience in this world that this little entry takes place in, of like this kind of, DIY punk rock hardcore world of bands and anti-corporation stances in music and that kind of stuff. I got to say, none of these people seem like the kind of people that would be into this kind of thing at all. Like, it seems very inauthentic to me. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like even like I mean, so this is about a band that's talking about another band that had this disastrous show where everyone died, and they splice in clips of the other band doing something that was called an EPK, I believe, electronic press kit.
Yeah.
Which you and I both worked at Newberry Comics. We saw a bunch of these things. And the only bands that did shit like that were like major label bands.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
And which kind of ties in what we were talking about before. And their whole thing in this movie is like, oh, we're DIY, dude, our corporations are bad. But I'm like, you wouldn't be doing one of these if you were actually what you said you were.
Yeah, that just wasn't the culture. It was like zines and touring, like playing, basement shows, playing at like the Harvest Food Co-op basement and things like that. That it wasn't like about having high production EPKs, demos,
right,
demo tapes, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, I feel like they got that all completely wrong. Like when you said it's inauthentic, I completely agree with you. Like it's, you would see those EPKs for bands like, Clawhammer or like,
Clawhammer.
Just these really like pathetic bands like trying for any sort of legitimacy, like we're a real band, we put in our time,
Part of me thought at first like maybe this is like some ironic thing, but it's not. It wasn't really meant to be ironic that they were like some fabricated band. Like, I don't think that was the intention of this thing.
No, not at all. I completely agree with you. But this segment takes forever to get going, and it doesn't. Once it gets going, it just sort of plays out as like very just underwhelming and generic.
Yeah, and by the time things get cracking, I've already like started looking at my phone and checking my watch and like you know looking for something else to think about instead of watch this movie.
Yeah, like I'm on DoorDash. I'm like, do I want Torchy's tacos again? Tex-Mex, maybe barbecue. Barbecue's not really good in delivery. Yeah, like,
Yeah.
yeah, like
That was the same mindset I had too, man, during this one.
yeah, man. These kids are all annoying. It really takes its time setting this whole stupid thing up. They basically go to an abandoned, no, spoilers. They go to an abandoned building and where this band with the electronic press kit had a disastrous show. Everyone died, and now they're I guess zombies or something.
Yeah.
Other ghosts. I didn't really catch quite what they were, and I didn't care.
Well, they were definitely they were undead. Let's say that.
Undead, sure.
Yeah.
And it's hard to make out what's going on at any given moment once they get into the building. It's a found footage trope I really, really hate. This wasn't so much shaky cam as it just looked like absolute shit.
Yeah.
And maybe, obviously it's a budget thing. They don't have a lot of money to make these, and they're just using the 90s crappy quality to kind of mask that. But this one just did not work for me at all.
Me neither, man. Also, the name of the band was called Bitch Cat.
Yeah, yeah, I have that written down. This is so inauthentic. Like a band named Bitch Cat. That's just fucking absurd. But then again, Mike, in Boston, we had there was a band called Gangster Bitch Barbie. I used to see flyers for. I don't know if you remember that.
Of course I do, man. It's such an unforgettable name.
Yeah. I feel like we would always clown on those bands we'd see on flyers, like Gangsta Bitch Barbie and Feces PCs or whatever.
Yeah.
This is bad local rock bands.
Also, like by '99, I feel like Kid Rock and Korn and all that stuff was really starting to take over,
Yeah, totally. Like this felt more like mid '90s to me.
Yeah, and even then, it's like an all-girl band, like preaching that kind of message. I think would be more in like this kind of Olympia, Washington, like Riot Girl kind of vibe,
Yeah, exactly. And that speaks to your comment about this being very inauthentic. People who did not like live in this world, and if you weren't involved in it, it's very hard I would say, to translate that to film and get it completely right.
That's true.
Yeah. So we start this new VHS out with a fucking absolute dud, and at this point, I'm confused. I was like, wait, what was that fucking toy soldier thing?
Yeah, definitely off to a slow start, and then the next one up is Suicide Bid, written and directed by Johan Roberts. Okay, and this one starts off with a girl, a young lady. She's in college. You have the sense that her and her roommate are kind of like, they're not the most popular ladies on campus, and there's this sorority of basic bitches, basically, that are popular. They're all they're taller than her. I don't know if you picked up on how their stature was shown to be different,
Yeah, actually I did notice that.
And they're trying to, it's that rush season for sororities and fraternities. Something I don't know much about, actually, because I was never in. I didn't go Greek in college.
Yeah, that's a whole culture I don't know a goddamn thing about.
Yeah, it seems like really weird and sort of fascistic to me. So I didn't want anything to do with that stuff.
Sure, agreed. Despite everyone involved, every single character in this story is completely stupid. Every single one. down to like the cop that you don't even see on screen, you just hear him. uh, Despite that, I liked this story. It was a huge improvement over the first one, and fairly straightforward, but effective.
Yeah, this one rated higher because it had like there was like a very classic horror trope, really, like not classic and like Universal monsters, but like there was like a it was, this could almost have been, if it was better written, like a Stephen King story or something like that. You know what I mean?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. I agree with you that it could definitely be better written. But yeah, I mean, Buried Alive is a classic horror trope and something I think is a universal fear amongst probably everyone. Has that fear, or like, that thought gets under their skin, and you're in the coffin with them anytime you see something like that. That said, I wrote down in my notes, this is the biggest coffin ever. Like, a lot of space down there. You know what I mean? Like, you didn't really feel the claustrophobia.
No, and I in the last couple of years I've had quite a bit of coffins, and yeah, there's not really a lot of room in a casket really for any of these accoutrements that were brought down there with her.
Yeah, I feel like she could like easily like get onto her stomach and push herself up and break the top of the coffin or something like that. It's too much, just a lot of space, which I thought, it didn't really, drive me crazy or anything. It's just an observation. They probably had to do that to fit cameras and shit in there.
Yeah. Well, to real quick, to the reason why she's in this coffin is because there's to get into the sorority, she has to spend a night in the coffin, and they tell her this whole legend about like a past sister that this area is like haunted by this ghost essentially, and
Right.
so they have to bury her alive, and yeah, it kind of goes from there.
Yeah, I gotta say this annoyed me too. When they're telling her the story, I kind of hate the way they were like telling her, where one girl would say one line and then another girl would say another line. No one speaks like that.
No, and that's, see, the thing is though, it's like sometimes like when it's done well, when there's the dialogue is completely not realistic and they go hard in that direction. I kind of like that. I like dialogue like that sometimes, but this one is just poorly written, I thought.
Yeah, it is poorly written, and like they're like, it starts raining, and that is essentially like the undoing of this poor woman in the coffin, where the cops show up and the girls run away screaming, and for some reason don't come back for like another like 8 hours.
Did you get the sense for a minute that maybe they were actually witches and there was some kind of supernatural, like they were part of this, like, maybe sacrifice or something like that?
Yeah, actually, yes, I thought that's where they were going.
Yeah, me too.
When they're like dancing in the rain and everything, and like I said, the way they were like talking to the girl, where one girl would complete the other girl's sentence and things like that. I'm like, oh, this is a coven thing. That's what's going on. But that wasn't that at all. They were just, like you said, basic bitches with fucking combined IQ of like 20.
Yeah. No offense out there to basic bitches. If you're listening to anyone out there,
Yeah.
Basic bitch, there's room.
Yeah,
for
if Coldplay is your favorite band, it's okay.
I think Coldplay is running a sale with if you buy a copy of anything from their catalog, they issue you either a pumpkin spice latte or a pair of Dockers to wear.
And a Foo Fighters t-shirt.
At a discount, bargain Foo Fighters t-shirt. So yeah.
Yeah, so go check that out, basic people.
And you'll get a cameo with Dave Grohl. So yeah, okay.
Yeah, and he'll be wearing a Slayer shirt because he's such a badass clown. All the negatives aside, though, I thought this was pretty effective. It's like it was fun. The box of spiders was a nice touch. I actually wanted to ask you, do you think those are real spiders? Because they looked real to me.
If they were, then how would this just? I get so much more respect for the people who made this, that they are actually using real spiders.
Yeah,
but I doubt that they were though. They were probably some kind of like I don't know, CGI like thing. But they didn't really look like CGI. I don't know.
No, the one crawling on her face might have looked fake, but when she first opened up that box, those moved like real spiders. To me, I don't know. I should have looked into it more, but I famously don't do my research. But it was a nice touch, and then the monster I thought was really cool. Like, the effects in these things tend to be kind of bad. I thought this looked practical and scary, and just kind of added more to, like, the whole thought of being buried alive. And you're buried alive, and there's also something in there with you. That's a scary idea, and this is one I felt like could have easily been like 10 minutes longer with like a better script, better dialogue. Would have been a fully realized, but instead it was just, that was cool.
Yeah, this one is definitely like the closest one to being enjoyable for me. It's I found myself kind of interested in this one, whereas some of the other ones I just really lost, like, complete
Yeah,
interest in.
sure. And again, this kind of comes to an abrupt ending. I got a real creep show, Tales from the Crypt kind of vibe from this. I think, with like another pass at a script or something, you could have had something on that level.
I agree. I think this one definitely potentially could have been much better, but still wasn't that bad.
Yeah, no. Like, obviously things to criticize, but enjoyable. And my interest perked up with this one because after the first one, I was like, all right, well, I got another hour and a half of bullshit coming my way, I guess. So nice surprise that it perked up with this one.
The next one, Ozzy's Dungeon, which is the Flying Lotus one, was to me like almost unwatchable, really.
Oh, well, this will be interesting. This was my favorite episode.
Really? Oh man.
Yeah,
So you take the wheel on this one, man. I want to hear what you have to say about it.
Well, I really enjoyed the comedic aspects. This is obviously going more for comedy than it is for scares. I like the lead actor's name escapes me, but it was driving me crazy where I knew him from, and then I realized he's the voice of Trevor in Grand Theft Auto 5.
Wow.
Very popular video game that I'm sure someone listening has played. I don't play a lot of video games, but I played that one. It's a lot of fun, and his performance in the game is quite good as this fucking methed out desert dwelling lunatic. And he's fun in this. Obviously, I get kind of a Guar vibe from this whole short. Did you?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, because there's like a lot of props, a lot of like kind of gross out styles, humor.
He's playing this like sleazy piece of shit. Like, I know, like Guar has that character.
Yeah, their manager, Sleazy P. Martino.
Yeah, he totally seems like, based on that. Like, he's got like the same look and everything. I just found it funny, like this whole idea of a deranged kids show. Really, just spoke to me. Where like it's not safe at all. Kids are getting like brutally hurt and legs snapped. The host clearly is like doesn't give a shit about him. He's like bumping kids out of the way, and they have to do these degrading things like catch a rack of ribs or something in their mouths, like just impossible tasks.
Well, the ultimate one is where they're going through. You basically are a piece of shit. Passing through the digestive system of this, like, out of the large intestine, and that's kind of like the game. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, and it was obviously sort of making fun of shows like Double Dare that was on Nickelodeon. I'm sure. I mean, you're a bit older than me, but I don't know if you ever watched that stuff when you were a kid.
I didn't watch it.
Yeah, I didn't think so. Yeah, which also. This is supposed to be 1999. I thought that was a weird thing. I was like, by the 99, this stuff was sort of not really a thing anymore. I think. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe because I was grown up and didn't, watch Nickelodeon or anything like that. But it seemed like a weird thing to have take place in 99.
Yeah, maybe this would have been better VHS 90s,
Yeah, exactly. Maybe like a looser. Yeah, I agree because it didn't really have much to do with 1999 until the last story. which was a Y2K, something that was on everyone's mind back then. But I don't know. I kind of enjoyed this one. It knew what it was. It knew this was like more comedic. I thought the idea of like, if you're a kid and you win the course, you get a wish granted. You go through this tunnel and you get your wish granted, and no one's ever won. Creepy, cool.
You go through the
Yeah.
intestines of some beast and exit
Yeah.
through the anus, and that's how you win. Yeah.
Yeah. It was funny. I thought it was a cool idea. Again, I don't think this is the most well executed thing. It's got a few problems, but the tone is fairly consistent throughout this one. Of like, this is played for laughs, and it's basically the story. A girl comes from Detroit. The host mocks her. Oh, what? You can't afford to fly? You fucking drove. And she loses. She breaks her leg really brutally. It's a nice effect. And so her family kidnaps the host of the show and makes him go through the course, which I thought was going to be like the whole thing, but then he ends up taking him to the abandoned set of where the show took place, and you realize it's some sort of beast that grants wishes, and that's why they made it so hard that no one could ever win, because it was real. It was a supernatural being.
That was the only part I thought was cool, was that there is some otherworldly creature that lives in the bowels of this facility. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's just the whole thing, the way everything was connected just didn't really work for me,
Sure. Yeah. It's maybe like a more like, I don't know if a serious version of this would have worked, but it could have gradually ramped it up. Like by the time, they get to the cave and you see everything. I mean, again, it's all sort of played for laughs, and you realize that the girl's wishes was just more sinister than you expected, which I thought was a nice touch. And yeah, this one totally worked for me. It was a lot of fun. It was funny. The performance from the lead actor was great. He knew what he was in, and he got it just right.
Yeah, I kind of think
it was a hit for me.
I kind of feel like if the way that this could have been done, I'm trying. I don't want to be like the way I would have did it, but I think that if you had approached it more like Stephen King, Running Man, or something like that, you know what I mean? Like
Sure.
there's like
the
whole thing, just the production of it. And I know this is like a low budget thing, but people have done awesome stuff with no money, and this whole thing just felt like, I don't know, I just wasn't into it.
Yeah, well, it does look like shit, but
terrible.
In its defense, they all kind of look like shit.
This is true.
Yeah. And I don't think it matches with the time either. I mean, 99, I think that's right when digital sort of cameras and everything like that were coming out and starting to become like the standard. Am I wrong in thinking that?
Maybe. That I'm unclear on.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely feel like things looked better than this by 99.
Maybe.
So I think them trying to do that because of budget restraints, it's a little bit of a stretch for me, even though I could be completely wrong. As far as I know, Flying Lotus is no filmmaking experience. Maybe he did some video, but for someone who's not a professional filmmaker or whatever, like I thought he did a good job. He got the tone right, like consistent and good performances, funny idea. It's a thumbs up for me on that one.
Fuck
that. No, man, you're wrong.
Nah, for me,
Yeah.
Sure. That brings us to the wraparound, Gawkers. Okay, and this is you didn't see this connected to the Army Man thing?
No, and that speaks more to me probably just not fucking paying attention.
Probably, man.
Because I wrote down, like, it was like, okay, this should have been the first story. Because it's what a first story in an anthology should be. It's not the best. It's a little slight. You meet these kids, and then, something bad happens. The end, move on to the next one.
Well, all right. So we mentioned this wraparound with these Army men, and they're World War II army men doing like, heinous things like, war crimes to each other and stuff like that.
Yeah. It was funny.
It was funny. I was like, this is like definitely funny, like darkly humorous. And then
Yeah.
we come after the Aussies dungeon thing ends up, we see these two, a German and an American soldier, embracing each other, like the toys, basically, these little army men.
Yeah.
And then the older brother walks in. He's like, "What are you doing with my stuff?" or whatever. And it turns out to be that's what this kid was playing around with, like these army soldiers, these toys. And then we were introduced to a group of young men, and they're, I feel like these guys are kind of typical '90s teenagers in a lot of ways. They're into like skateboarding, looking at their neighbors, checking out girls at the pool, doing stupid shit to each other, like that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So that was like pretty much like, okay, cool, I get it. These are like young derelict kids.
Yeah, sure. Not too different from my group of friends.
Exactly.
I could recognize myself in these kids for sure. I mean, I wasn't peeping up girls' skirts or anything like that, but we were fucking fuck ups, degenerates, just doing gnarly shit to amuse ourselves. I got it.
Wasn't that a thing? Remember there was like, that was kind of like a thing maybe like in Vice or some magazine where these guys would take photographs of like up girls' skirts. Like that was like this thing for a while.
Yeah, I think so. That rings true to my ears anyway. I know, like, I think, revenge, that was the beginning of like revenge porn or whatever. Like, before there was like, porn tubes all over the internet. There was shit like that. Yeah.
But that funny thing in this one, the guy fails at doing it though.
Yeah. Yeah, they spend all this time to like make a hidden camera and everything. And they get caught right away. Yeah.
Is that a camera?
Yeah. Yeah, that was funny. Like that aspect of this story works more for me than like, the supernatural stuff. And now that I know that it's the wraparound story, you kind of expect it to be like a little bit more epic than it is. It's just sort of a great setup and then just sort of like a weak punchline.
So the real crux of this story is these guys have a neighbor, and she's this attractive blonde lady who lives across the the street from them, and they're trying to figure out a way to they're watching all these delivery guys like freak out about how hot she is and all this kind of stuff, and they have a brother who's like a computer guy, like he's doesn't want to hang out with the older guys, but he's not cool enough for them, and then she's has a webcam. They see a delivery guy delivering a webcam to her, and the younger brother is out on his rollerblades, right? Which I thought was hysterical. Like he's like
nice.
He's just like this uncoordinated guy. Like he's harmless, not the coolest dude there is. And then she sees him and he's like falling all over himself and he can't stand up. And I don't know. I thought that was actually pretty funny.
I did too.
She kind of takes pity on him. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, and then he comes back to the house and he's like, I agreed to help her set up her webcam, and they're just like, what? You got to set this up so that we can watch her on our computers through her webcam. He's like, can you do something like that? And he's like, yeah, I think so. So he has a little bit of remorse too. And he's like the only guy that has any real morals. Cause he's like, I feel like I'm betraying her trust and all this stuff. And they're just like, come on, man, you want to hang out with us? Like you got, be a man and go over there and fucking let's help us spy on her basically.
Yeah. Did you get like an 80s vibe from this one? Because that's what I was thinking watching it, like Revenge of the Nerds, Fright Night.
Sure, definitely.
The hot neighbor.
Yeah.
Hopefully you'll see some tits. It's such a teenager thing.
Well, that was definitely an 80s thing. And the funny thing that you mentioned that is we're looking at those guys are like not cool like by today's standards,
Right.
Back in the 80s, they would be heroes for thinking up something like that.
Oh yeah, God, absolutely.
Like in the 80s, it would be like, oh, why did I think of that? It's like being able to spy on women and stuff like that, like without, like watching them take their clothes off without them knowing was like that was what the hero did in 80s movies.
Yeah, it's like the plot of so many movies.
Yeah.
Porky's, Revenge of the Nerds, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, like no one, even like a movie like American Pie, which I think was a '90s movie. You got everyone's watching this kid try to fuck this girl, a naked girl on a webcam. Like if that came out today, they'd be crucified for it, and probably rightfully so. It's a little creepy, but back then, no one really thought twice about it.
Dude. One of the creepiest moments in an 80s movie, and I even felt this when I saw this when I was a young kid and I saw this, was in 16 Candles, okay?
There's a lot wrong with that movie, yeah.
The what's his name there? Farmer Ted, the Michael Anthony Hall, is that his name?
Yeah.
That guy. All right.
Evil Dies Tonight himself.
Yeah, Evil Dies Tonight Hall. Yeah. That guy. So he's in a car with a really like one of the popular girls, and she's drunk, and they basically rapes her while she's like drunk and passed out, and he's like, did we what I think we did last night, and she's like, yeah, I think so, and it's like, was I okay? And I was just like, my God, even then I was kind of cringing, even as like a whatever, like 15, 16-year-old kid. I was like, man, that's not cool to do that stuff, and it was like now. When you look back on all that stuff, it's like, damn, that's like dark, man.
Oh, totally, man. I remember watching The Breakfast Club where Judd Nelson's character is hiding under the desk and sees like, the girl's panties and, goes in and like, I think it implies that he bit her or was like, fucking playing with her or whatever. And I do, yeah. I remember thinking, I was like, I was 10, so I was kind of confused by the whole thing, but like, I remember thinking like, oh, he attacked her. That's a little, yeah.
Absolutely.
Didn't sit well to me at a young age. I'm not tooting my own horn. I'm just being honest.
Yeah. But now it's like clearly these guys are not conducting themselves the right way. And
clearly.
And the message gets meted out. So it turns out that, the brother who has some sort of scruples about it is like, I think I'm betraying her trust. And they're just like, no, go ahead and do it. He successfully creates some data link between her webcam and their computer, and they start seeing her, take her clothes off at first, but then she transforms into a Gorgon. And then she realizes she's being, spied on, and she just takes her revenge out on these guys.
Yeah, and that's sort of my big problem with it, and that's boom, that's it, end of story. All this like cool build up and characterization, and then she just sort of like either slaughters them or turns into stone. And I don't know, I just thought, again, I know these are shorts and you got to wrap it up quickly, but I just felt there was a little bit more to this one. Like we said, some of these would have played out better as like films, like. You take this one and do like an 80s throwback, and I think it would be a great movie with a supernatural twist.
I partially agree with you. Like, on one hand, it's like, where else do you really go with it? You know what I mean? Maybe you have to like build up the characterization or something like that. I was actually having fun watching this movie just because the kids were such jackasses,
Yeah.
And, and I'm like, man, these, like, this stuff's pretty funny, but then I was the choice of making it a Gorgon I thought was interesting, but not something I think really. I guess if you wanted to wrap the story up real quick, that's a way of doing it. But I just think that decision was kind of whack, in my opinion.
Yeah, maybe it could have been integrated more. Like, our neighbor's hot, or maybe there's something up with her. We found the snake skin, something, because they do find snake skin and they don't even think twice about it. But again, I think you would need more time to develop that story. And like you said, that it had to be wrapped up pretty quick.
But the theme here is poor writing, in my opinion.
Yes,
that's like the overarching theme in this entry. And it's like, okay, budget. You're given a certain amount of time. I don't think that should prevent you from making a good movie. Look at Benson and Moorhead. You know,
Sure.
I
Or
mean,
Joe Begos.
Joe Begos, if I handed those guys like a phone, they would be able to make a fucking movie. You know what I mean? Just with their iPhones.
Totally.
Probably. And it would be awesome. So, you know, that's why
Totally
that
agree.
stuff, like having to have disclaimers about, oh, well, we only had a certain amount of money to do it. I'm like, not today, dude. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah. And like, I've been saying a lot of these work better as features. You can tell a great story in 20 minutes. It can be done.
Yeah, no, totally. You know. The last entry is To Hell and Back. All right, and you,
yeah,
and you were mentioning that this is on the eve of Y2K. So this is New Year's Eve, 1999. And I know there's probably a contingency of you young kids out there that probably were born after 1999, but Jeff and I
sure.
remember very much the build up to this, the turn of the millennium, and the anxiety that everyone had about it. So this is cool that this is one of the things that was included in this.
Yeah, man. I think you and I were both living in the Mission Hill district of Boston around that right at that time. I remember, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Were you still there?
Yep.
It was right around that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a fear that was, I mean, it wasn't at the front of my mind. I never really thought it was going to be the end of the world. But, I was smoking a lot of pot back then and pretty stupid. So maybe I did. I can't quite remember. But it was an anxiety, what's going to happen. And, I was really waiting for them to tackle this. I was like, well, if they're doing the 99, it's going to have to be centered around Y2K or something. And it really didn't play a part until this story. And then even then, it doesn't really play into the story much at all.
Yeah, it's like this didn't necessarily have to be presented in 1999. This story, you know what I mean? It's
right.
Like,
that's what I meant. Yeah.
It was like it could have. That wasn't the main crux of this story. That it's not about Y2K. It's not about any of that anxiety. It's about that this night was a night that they have to do this ritual to have someone possessed by a demon, basically.
Right.
And
yeah.
So I'm interested. That right there, that's kind of
Yes.
cool. That's an interesting
Yes.
thing for me. I think that I'm a fan of that type of horror.
Me too.
Stuff with like satanic, stuff and witchcraft and possessions and rituals, like all that stuff influenced. Is very much interesting to me. So yeah.
Yeah, and then it takes a turn pretty quickly.
Yeah, there's these two guys that it's like. They're filming it, I guess, to document this thing. Is that why they're filming it?
Sure.
I kind of forgot why.
I guess so. Yeah. I kind of abandoned even thinking about that watching these found footage movies now because it's just absurd that anyone would be documenting something like this. Secret society shit. You know, but whatever.
The fact that it's a secret society means that they don't want to have any evidence of anything that they've done. You know what I mean?
Right.
So they're not going to have like a home movie of like this ritual that's going to like embody like a demon in human form. You know what I mean?
Yeah. This one, man, I got to say, this seems to be one of the more popular entries of some people's favorites, just from what I've read. And this one didn't really work for me at all. It kind of took a cool idea and again, played up the comedic aspect of it. Which I don't know, like it just didn't speak to my taste for this particular story. I praised one of the stories for getting the comedic tone right, but here, like something a little bit more serious, I just think would have gone a long way. Instead, you're spending like these guys accidentally get sent back to hell with their video camera, that works in hell for some reason. And they got like 5 minutes to find this demon and attach themselves to him and get back to the real world. And it's mostly played for laughs.
Yeah, and they meet Mabel. This, I guess she's a demon too down there.
I was gonna ask, what the hell was she? Like human demon? She speaks in this different sort of dialect. She's probably been in hell forever, but she gee, I don't know.
Well,
It was,
this is probably random, but have you ever read the Demon in the DC comics with Etrigan? The
no,
okay,
no.
I I mean Etrigan originally appeared in Swamp Thing in the '80s, and then DC
Okay.
Comics gave him his own series, and he kind of spoke like that. You know what I mean? That's like
Okay.
it reminded me of Etrigan or something like that, but it was like not really like that. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what she was. She was a lesser demon, maybe. I don't know.
It was to me, she seemed like a scavenger, just like someone who was in hell and trying to survive and hadn't aged or something. It was a very theatrical sort of performance, which, I guess it fits the tone of what they're doing. It's kind of goofy and tongue in cheek, and these guys are in hell. They're not really terrified. They're more annoyed, like, oh, what the hell? Oh, it's weird.
Well, maybe she's not. Yeah, maybe she's not a demon. She's just like a denizen of hell. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like she's just like
not
an inhabitant of hell.
Yeah, like a cave dweller of hell, like someone who ended up there like these guys did by accident or something.
Maybe she's a lost soul.
Yeah, maybe.
She had lived a very bad life. Did evil things, and was cast into the abyss.
Yeah.
For eternal damnation.
Sure.
That could have been what she was there for. Which means that I guess I'm leading up to that. Is like I thought Mabel was cool. Like I would like to know Mabel in my personal life. So
I think I've known a few Mabels in my day.
Yeah, like it'd be cool if she came to Earth. You know what I mean? At some point,
Yeah, yeah. They could have done something more with her character, but in the end, she was just like, "Remember thy name, Mabel. Write it in the book," or whatever. And I mean, I didn't like this one, man. I didn't like their movie. Did you see their movie on Shudder? Because I like that even less.
Everyone told me to avoid that one because of the fact that we didn't like that. You and I both gave Dash Cam like I gave it a 0. So everyone was like, everyone that people listeners to this show have like recommended that I don't watch that because of I didn't like Dash Cam.
Well, I mean, it's not that bad. Dash Cam is the worst movie I've ever seen in my life. So it's not that bad.
Okay.
But it's obnoxious and annoying and I don't know why I didn't shut it off. I finished the fucking whole thing. But it was definitely one of those movies where like I checked out almost immediately and pretty much hated the remaining hour and 20 minutes. The lead character is annoying, obnoxious, couldn't get into it at all. This is better than that, and I did not like this.
By the way, written and directed by Vanessa and Joseph Winter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's who produced that other film that you were talking about.
Right. Yeah. I think one of them is the star. The guy is the star also of the film Dead Cam or whatever the fuck it's called, Dead Stream.
You think?
I think he might have been the star of this too. I think he was the one holding the camera. I think.
Oh, okay. Do you think they're brother and sister or husband and wife?
That's a good question. I'm going to go with husband and wife.
Okay.
You don't see a lot of brother-sister duos. You just don't.
Nah, man. I was just curious. I was like thinking about like, do they, because like it's odd, almost odd that women take the name of their husband these days.
Yeah.
I
guess it is.
So
you don't see a lot of that anymore, which, it's fine with me. I wouldn't curse anyone with my last name. Am I off base here? What do you think of this, man? I've been talking for a while. What did you think?
I thought it was terrible, man. I didn't like it either. The idea, like I said, like it hooked me for a minute, and then I just was like, you guys are fucking up, man. You guys are blowing it,
And that just speaks to the last two entries in the VHS movies altogether, where they just shifted into more like comedic, whereas I thought the first two movies had that element, of course, but like there were some ones that were very serious. You have the Ty West one, which is just genuinely creepy and unsettling, and they just don't seem to be going for that at all anymore.
Well, those are like, even though at the time they were relatively unknown, they were real filmmakers, and
Sure. Yeah.
the people that are made these things, I don't know. I mean, I'm probably going to be wrong, and these probably good people are all going to have like these very successful careers, but that speaks more about, I guess, the environment in which they're working in. You know what I mean? Because I just think that like the other definitely the first three VHSs, I thought had some pretty quality stuff in there. The first two were the best. The third was okay, and the wraparound story for all the others I thought were fairly cool, like especially the one with the where the house, we have to break into the house, and that one I thought was really interesting.
The first two wraparounds, even though they kind of like, I didn't really know where they were going with it. They were interesting. They were cool, a little creepy. They just didn't even bother with that this time. And the wraparound story in the last one was really abysmal.
Yeah.
Where the cops were the villains or whatever the fuck.
Oh God,
I don't even remember. Yeah.
Yeah, that was like completely pointless and a waste of time, in my opinion.
I agree. So I thought kind of getting rid of that this time around was going with something different was cool, but they didn't really do much with it. Like you say, I didn't even catch it. It was connected to the Gawkers or whatever. It just ended up being a big nothing as far as like, and they even wrap it around at the end with like a static shot of the kid. His camera's still going, but he's stoned or whatever. And, that was kind of cool, but like, I don't know. Didn't go anywhere for me.
Now, out of all these, which one do you rate being worthwhile? Like, which one's your favorite, for lack of a better term?
Yeah, I would go with Ozzy's Dungeon, like I mentioned, and then the Gawkers.
Yeah.
And then Suicide Bid.
Yeah, I think Suicide Bid's my favorite, and the Gawkers, and the rest are all at the same level of abysmalness, I think, except for maybe Ozzy's Dungeon is like at the sub basement part of that, maybe.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So overall, okay, so when we did VHS 94, I gave it a 2.5. I think you gave it maybe a 3 or 2.5. I think we were about the same.
Yeah.
So what do you give VHS 99?
I give this one a 2, actually, because I think I liked it less than the previous one, like overall, Yeah, there's the one Timo Tjahjanto, that guy, the guy who made Safe Haven, had a piece on there which was like,
yeah, you really like that one.
Yeah, I mean that one was entertaining at least, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that one bumps this up a little bit, but not enough to really make it good, the overall thing good,
Right. I am gonna give this the lowest recommendation, a 3.
Okay. I'm done.
I think it's an improvement. I mean, maybe I'm just being generous because when I think about the last one, there were 2 stories I really liked, which is the rat one and the hillbillies with a vampire. Again, it was played for laughs, and it worked. It was very funny.
That was good though. That was like a good play for laughs. I thought. Yeah.
You know what? No, I'm gonna go 2.5. Same as the other one.
All right. Okay.
I mean, it's fun. It was a fun one. The first story is abysmal and unwatchable. The Flying Lotus one I thought was great, but the rest were just sort of, they were fine. And this is maybe a fun watch on Halloween night. You got nothing else to do, but nothing at the level of the first 2 at all.
I think don't go out of your way to see this one. But if you're out late one night and you had a couple pints, or whatever you're into, and you want to come home and you're not quite ready to go to sleep, put this on, and it'll put you to sleep. So.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I agree with that. I know there's already another one that they either filmed or is filming.
I can't wait. I can't wait for that.
Well, actually, there was a name on there that I think maybe David Bruckner is doing a segment or someone. There was a name where I was like, oh, I know that.
Bruckner is batting like 1 for 3 with me right now. So
yeah, he's kind of I think we mentioned in the Hellraiser episode. I think The Ritual is okay.
Yeah.
I thought The Night House was okay. Ultimately, ended up being a pretty stupid movie, but competent and watchable. Hellraiser stunk. So I'm still really kind of on the fence. Like I mentioned before, I think his directing style is just a little bit flat. I thought The Ritual could have been a modern classic, but instead it's okay.
Well, that's the thing with The Ritual too. It's like it's not even. I think the script was pretty solid with The Ritual.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I liked it a lot, actually. I do. I liked the film in general. I thought The Ritual was actually really good. The other two, no. The other two did not win me over, which leads me to believe that if he has a better script, maybe he can do good things.
Yeah.
So I'm still out.
Yeah.
The jury's out on David Bruckner right now, for me at least.
He seems like an odd choice for something like this. You get like, I was going to mention Benson and Moorhead. They actually have a segment in 3,
All right.
I think.
They do.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's not that good.
Oh, well, now, damn. If they put them on now, that would be the best one. They should do a whole show, a whole VHS, just those guys.
I think if you get got Benson and Moorhead, Joe Begos, guys who do stuff on a low budget and do it really well, I think you could turn this franchise around and get guys like that to make these films
or
these shorts,
or they just want to crank these out for to just put on streaming, like just so they have content out.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, this is for those who don't know, this is produced by the website Bloody Disgusting. Am I right? Or someone involved with Bloody Disgusting.
Yeah, I think it has their logo on it for sure.
Right, which obviously they care about the genre. Obviously,
they do. Yeah.
I don't think they're trying to make these just as cash grabs. I think there's a genuine passion behind it, and I think it's cool they're giving an opportunity to less established filmmakers to, get their name out there. And, I don't want to shit on these movies too. I think, like I said, it's an okay watch. It's just, none of them really hit that high mark for me, but they're not garbage.
But there has been a huge drop off though in quality.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And that's when I'm like complaining about that. It's like, it's just to be able to get a piece on one of these things is a huge thing for a filmmaker. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And it's like,
I
mean, hell, the first couple, a lot of those guys became household names, like Adam Wingard, Ty West, they became very, very successful, prominent filmmakers. So
Adam Wingard's making $100 million movies now with fucking King Kong and all that.
Yeah, totally. So if you are given an opportunity like this, at least have try to have some quality control, man. And like I said, it's like the budget shouldn't limit your creativity, really. Like I said, I just cited the Something in the Dirt, the Benson and Moorhead film. It's like, I mean, that honestly, they probably could have spent $5,000 on that movie for all I know, and just made it with equipment that they already owned. With no crew, and they could have edited it themselves. I don't know the budget or how much they spent on it or whatever. I mean they probably had. I mean, just because those guys are flirting with mainstream right now, they probably had some kind of budget for it, but not much.
Yeah, and I cannot wait to see their new film. That's one I definitely gotta see before I complete my top 5.
Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah.
So that's it, man.
There'll be another one of these, and we'll probably we'll talk about another one in probably another couple weeks. Certainly,
it's out next week.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for listening, everyone, and enjoy.
Take care.